Aline, over to you. Just give us a brief introduction about yourself and your journey in the e-mobility space.
Yep. Hello, everyone. I entered the mobility space 5 years ago, and I've always been passionate about how it actually connects every part of the cities and how it actually enhance the possibility for people to grow personally, but also um, in the working, I would say, environment. And I've actually been interested in inclusivity in general. And because this panel is all about including one of I would say, the category of people that have been neglected for many years, really interest me, and it's a pleasure to be part of this conversation today. And my I would say topics of interest are around in general popular transport, urban planning, um, and energy as well. So happy to be here today.
Thank you so much, Charlene. Such commitment and interest. Next, we have Anna Z. Anna Z, over to you.
Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here today. Thank you for including me in this discussion. So this is something that's just really close to my heart. I think as an emerging industry, like e-mobility, we could definitely use more women, include more of the youth. So my e-mobility journey started actually around 2019, and I'm actually a journalist by training for years to come. So yeah, thank you so much, Duncan.
Thank you, Anna Z. We'll go over to Mary.
Everyone, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Mary, based in Kigali, Rwanda. I work with this electric and e-mobility-based company that is building out the ecosystem in South Africa. We have we offer services such as EV cells, EV charging network, and the maintenance. So I would say my journey started 2 years ago when I joined Kabisa. I never really thought that I would end up working or in the sector of EVs. The experience has been amazing. Working along people who are supportive. It's been amazing. Yeah, and I'm happy to be here. I look forward to having an engaging conversation.
Thank you, Mary. And last but not the least, we have Luta. Hi, Luta.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lisa Anora, and I'm an environmental planner. But I'm looking forward to discussing on opportunities for women in sustainable transport, specifically the transition to e-mobility in Africa. On my journey, well, I started getting an interest in electrical vehicles and sustainable transport since 2019, 5 years ago, I think. And my perspective as a development agent is basically based on the importance of inclusion towards the achievement of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. When we make reference to sustainable development goals, of course, we make a reference directly to issues related to climate change. So this is the kind of linkages that I want to maybe expose here, that we can see that we have in terms of transitioning to e-mobility and the impact that it has on climate change. I found it interesting also to learn more in terms of other opportunities and what women can contribute, not only as consumers of electric vehicles, but also being part of the production and the whole value chain. So it's really a pleasure to join this discussion today. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Lutas. Thank you. I am glad that we see a wide range of experience from our panelists. So we'll go in proper. I know we are all eager to hear the numbers, to hear opportunities, and then more information. So I'll go back to Anika.
Mentioned that before that actually right now I'm leading UNEP's work on e-mobility in Africa, and we have projects in about 14 African countries on e-mobility. And the topic of gender is always sort of a cross-cutting issue there. And I think it's interesting to see now how we can bring it more to the forefront of not something that we just tick the box. Okay, we have, for example, a workshop with 30% female participation, but that we actually really do something more transformative. And that is why 2 years ago, I developed a project where we received funding from the German government, which is mobility as a driver for change towards a more gender transformative and just transition to mobility. And in that framework, we have now concluded an international baseline study to assess exactly that. What are different entry points for women in the mobility space? And we have used four sort of angles to that. One is women as users of transport services. And there we know, and previously I worked at the World Bank where we did a lot of work on the user perspective of women, that women often have different travel patterns. For example, they need to travel with kids. They don't have fixed working hours. They travel in off-peak times, which often means they don't have a high-frequency public transport services. Often they have less resources or less access to a vehicle. Often they don't have driver's licenses. The vehicle is with the male head of the household, which means for them they often have to walk or take public transport, which is often then a safety or security concern due to issues of harassment and lack of safe access. And so we wanted to see how now, if we shift to electric vehicles, what is changing. And we found out, well, the basics remain the same, right? It's not going to give women immediately better transport, but there is an opportunity, for example, if we now think about redesigning public transport systems around e-mobility. For example, now in Dakar in Senegal, they have an electric BRT system, which is now in Togo and Ghana, where women are now using electric two-wheelers, which can be motorcycles or bicycles. So basically, a new mode of transport that didn't exist before. It's now allowing some women on the one side to be more mobile, and on the other side also using it as a source of income generation when mobility. And then the second angle, I think this is sort of one of the key ones for this webinar, is the one women as workers in the transport sector. And there, I mean, there are many different angles. So it might be, of course, be the design of the vehicles, the production of the vehicles, the sale of the vehicles, the operation of the vehicles. And there was a study done by FCDO recently on, like, for example, are there different design features of electric vehicles that make them more suitable for women. And for that, it's often important that within the workforce, you have women that are involved in designing these vehicles, and also at the level of planning. And that's what brings me to the other point, which is the issue on decision making and planning. So in the study we did, we found that globally, only 8% of ministers of transport are women. Which means that often their perspectives are not included when, let's say, a new transport policy is developed for a country. And now we see that many countries, for example, Kenya has a mobility task force, and other countries have sort of steering committees for mobility. That's important that women are included in these committees. And when these policies are being developed, that perspective is already sort of there in terms of different viewpoints, planning, mobility, safety, security. And then the fourth angle we looked at was the issue of women as entrepreneurs in the sector. So starting new companies, operating their own vehicles, setting up charging stations, or other, or even buying vehicles, leasing them to others. And there we see that the biggest barrier is often access to financing, because there needs to be sort of a credit history behind, or some sort of collateral, which is often not available. And that's why we intend to also work very closely with financing entities, and that sort of mixes the whole e-mobility agenda with the ESG, environmental, social, governance issues. And there are certain criteria globally to, for example, for gender sensitive investments. And there now comes sort of the donor perspective. Often donors have certain, let's say, like gender tax, where they will only finance projects that have either benefiting women, are managed by women, have women contributions, or other aspects. I think this will help also many companies to access financing. And and then just briefly, some sort of general recommendations that we have developed. So one is strengthening, so positioning e-mobility sort of in a more broad sustainable mobility strategy. So not seeing it just as a shift in technology, but in the general, in the sense of how can we improve the transport system for all. And usually, if we think about how we can improve it for women, it will also improve that for mainly low income groups, for children, for the elderly, and for everyone. So that's why it's very important to have sort of these perspective when we plan new transport systems. Look at the link between gender, transport, climate change. So, for example, as I said before, when new policies are being developed, it will be important that, for example, there's a gender expert on the table to do, for example, gender analysis, to conduct an audit if, like, this policy is not disadvantaging certain groups in the society, um, have better coordination. For example, when, as UNEP, when we help countries to form these coordination bodies in mobility, we ensure that a representative from either a Ministry of Gender Affairs or from an NGO working on gender topics is included, so that these views are being heard of when these new mobility projects are being developed. Data collection, as I said before, I think that is very key, and we see in many African countries that on the one side, transport data is not collected at all or in a like regular and consistent basis, and then it's not collected disaggregated by gender. So that means trip data, uh, trip distances, trip locations, and all that. So I think it's very important that now with e-mobility or with electric vehicles, we also have a chance, because they're often more digital, to collect better data for transport. And there it's very important that private actors who deploy, for example, electric vehicles, work together with public decision makers to share the data, so that can help them to improve the planning system and the infrastructure for transport. And then, of course, there's the issue around capacity building. And I think there we have seen, I think African AV is doing a great job in providing technical trainings that are also targeted to women. Um, Others are doing similar efforts. So I think it starts with there. We see that women are still less predominant in sort of the science and technology subjects. So I think this is important to build a pipeline of talent. And we hear from many companies that the issue is getting a good workforce with the right skill set is important. And of course, if we don't look at 50% of the global population, that reduces the amount of available suitable talent for the companies. And and then, of course, the investment in local research and development is also important to see sort of what are opportunities, working with NGOs, and raising awareness on the topic. And I just wanted to um, sort of mention in general that I think we see a positive shift, and I think we can learn a lot also from the renewable energy sector, because also there are like some figures globally that in general, also in the oil and gas industry, it's more men working there, but we see for renewable energies, actually the share of women is much higher. And I would hope that for the transport sector, we can see a similar development, that right now, okay, the sector is established, the ice manufacturers, whatever, but now that we have sort of a newer sector emerging, can we use this to get it right from the beginning, and not right fully, but at least make an attempt? And I think many of the people here in the call are doing this, and yeah, I think I'm optimistic that we can sort of support this shift. And just a quick advertisement. So this report of the International Gender and Mobility Baseline Report is 102 pages. So there's a lot of data and information in there. And my plan is we'll launch it within the next few weeks. And I will ask the African EV to then share the link with all of you here in the panel to read more, and happy to receive any feedback. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anika. That's such an insightful conversation. Just getting to hear what UNEP is currently doing in order to balance the gender. And I just realized that when we're talking about balancing the gender, it's two-way. Is looking at how we can make the transport sector comfortable for women and children, and also looking at how we can bring in more women into the sector for jobs more like engineers, administrative works, and the rest. So I'm going to move the question to Charlene.
Yes. Can you hear me
Ye-
well? Okay.
yes, we can hear you. Go on.
Yeah. Actually, to add on what Anika was saying, I would say that as we ask and advocate for more women in the transport sector as a whole, not only because they represent more than half of the African population, but because they are the main users of public transport and public spaces. So denying the participation of women in the evolution of the transport sector is actually refusing to increase sorry the chance of living in a better environment and sustainable cities. Men alone can't face the climate change challenges that we are facing, and we need more women trained but also passionate and driven in the sector to improve our systems and transition towards, I would say, a just and equitable future. And e-mobility is one of the many solutions for decarbonation and a lever for social economical growth. We've seen it in many countries. Even though it is not new, it has become trendy over the years and has attracted a lot of attention in Africa. And I would say that being part of this new industry is stimulating. It can be exciting. And from where we are, it provides long-term working opportunities and revenues for people and women included. Yet we need to consider that multiple barriers still exist for women to enter the sector, let alone e-mobility, like inadequate operating hours, for examples, and style, but also safety and social norms. So if we want more women in the e-mobility sector, we should have an holistic approach, I would say, and change the paradigm in the entire transport system. Because what happens in e-mobility, which only represents less than 1% of the transport solutions and services in Africa, happens in logistics, in supply chain, in public transport, etc. So the opportunity we have with e-mobility is the global interest, I would say, and the possibility to do better, maybe even quicker through more inclusive, safe, green, of course, and fit for purpose, especially services and infrastructure. And the private sector has been playing a major role in integrating women in the mobility space through specific programs. Annika mentioned a few of them, local and international consortiums as well, and projects and PPP as well. So the growing amount of initiative and startups led by women in immobility is also a sign, and a great sign, that female participation is important, is valuable, and is impactful for the sector. Multiple examples from Kenya with two and three wheelers, with startups like Iwaka, Ibi, Isafiri, that have literally disrupted the face of immobility, making it more inclusive and accessible, notably through last mile delivery, through shared mobility and energy provision as well. And these women in immobility also leverage and support other women led businesses. So it is a, I would say, a virtuous cycle. And then there's another example, for example, such example, sorry, in Zimbabwe with Mobility for Africa, with its lease to purchase model, battery swapping and maintenance, allowing small scale farmers to improve their revenue and access to market, but also supporting the health sector, with the medicine and people transportation in rural areas. And have another example from Cote d'Ivoire. The startup EVTech now is co-led by a woman, and is also driving the shift in the country towards more inclusivity. That was not the case before, when the startup launched its first activities 4 years ago, I think. And it's not only about providing mobility services, or I would say sustainable mobility services, but also trainings to make sure that women jobs are sustainable, that they are retained in the workforce and in the value chain, which makes a big difference for them and for their families. And as a community, we don't have the luxury to exclude one important part of the population, not to mention creative, brilliant, passionate, and driven minds, simply because of their gender. And I mean, as we know, we're facing a multidimensional crisis around the world, and it has bigger impacts in Africa, with clearly less investments and skills than anywhere. So we need to increase the level of engagement, of participation, and of representation of women in the sector, and make sure that in the decision making process and policies we include this gender balance, and that we favor more women participation simply in the sector. So I would say it's an ecosystemic approach, and it has to be done by everyone: the civil society, the private sector, the government bodies, but also from the international organizations that are mainly pushing for more inclusivity. I will stop there.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to move over to Anazi. Anazi, you've been doing a lot of work in South Africa, and you're leading a team of women. So can you just give us your perspective on female participation in the African context?
Yes, thank you. So obviously there has been an underrepresentation of women in the space. I do recall when I first started, being the only woman in the boardroom. And yeah, it was quite intimidating at first, but then after a while you get used to it. But my question was, why are there no women involved? What can we do to improve the involvement of women in transport just in general, let alone e-mobility? What can we do to make sure that we improve that? And that's why we actually started our Women in Mobility seminar and networking breakfast. This was to basically say you're not alone, because it does seem as though sometimes there are actually no women at all in the space. It's just that we are actually just working in silos. So we wanted to offer a platform for women to come together and basically share their experiences, um, also to connect and to lift each other up, to inspire and support one another and uplift each other, whether they're coming from women in energy or whether they're coming from women in mobility. We basically just wanted at a grassroots level to bring women together, and just become one community to say, no, you're not alone. You actually have an army behind you, supporting you and rooting for you always and all the time. And my experience in this was, even last year, we actually had a one woman in the room saying that she actually didn't have money to continue with her pilot license. And immediately after we had finished that congregation, all the women contributed close to 100,000 rands for that woman to continue with her license. As we speak, that woman now is actually flying planes. So it's just goes to show what impact we can make when women come together and they work with each other. But not only that, it's also having the men in the room, making sure they facilitate this and making sure that they're not contributing to the silos, they're not contributing to the gender stereotypes and bashing of women. It's to have the men in the room who have been there for years prior to us joining, to say, look, let's stand up for women in the space, and let's have a drive and bring more women to the table. And there's more than enough to go around. There's more than enough to go around. There's more that women can do for each other. There's more that men can do for women. So yeah, I'm just gonna stop there and say, look, we're here today. We're starting off the month of Women Strong. August is the month of women in my books, as we celebrate Women's Day on the 9th of August. So we're starting the month strong, and I just hope that it doesn't stop here because we're going into August. I hope it's a conversation that we take on throughout the year and see ways that we can include more women and youth into it. How can we educate them? What can women do to start learning sort of your STEM subjects? Who can support them? Because sometimes money is an issue, but sometimes it goes beyond the money. And like my other colleagues, like Charlene and Enika, have said, it's systemic. So we need to just start from the grassroots and working our way up and looking at what are actually these issues, these growing pains that are preventing women from actually supporting one another, pulling each other up, and taking each other to the top.
Thank you so much, Anazi. That's interesting. So we're in the Women's Month. Hallelujah. Okay, so we need to ask our fellow gender, what are they doing for us in this month with regards to immobility? I think for Africa Never, we're doing is for the female training. We think we're going to be sponsoring that for few women, just so that to celebrate women in the mobility space. Okay, please, if you have any question, you can drop it for the income messages. We'll read it. And then if you want also to get a notification for when the baseline reports that Anika spoke about, you could also drop your email, or she has dropped her email on the chat. You could pick her email and send her an email so that you can get a notification. All right, so I'll be moving over to Mary. So, Mary, what are the opportunities for women within the mobility space?
Thank you. I would start first pointing out that, like as it was discussed here or it's known, transport is one of the biggest sectors that contribute largely to countries economically and socially. But we still see a low number of women participating. And now, e-mobility being a whole new thing on the African continent, we still have a very, very small number of women participating. So in my point of view, I would say that there's women being left behind, but this is the time that the story changed. E-mobility being a whole new thing, I believe it's also an opportunity because we can just start now, start with a new thing and grow with it. Because most of the sectors, women fear to participate because they feel like they've left out, started a long time ago. But the e-mobility being a new thing, we can all start by now and grow with it and with time take over. So yeah, like just the other speakers, I think it's Anazi who was just talking about how she sit in in a room and see herself being the only woman. I would say it's the same when I sit at our company and seeing myself as the only woman. I wonder what's happening, but also it gives me so much energy to contribute to as women who already took a place in the sector. We can just uh, influence or contribute or help our fellow women by just providing awareness, advocating for them, because most women are just scared of the whole sector. uh, having people thinking it's a whole men sector with the mechanical and everything. But yeah, we see women doing mechanical jobs, so it's also a sector they can step in. So I would say that we just have to influence our fellow women, and yeah, that this is doable. I also talk about like it's always easier to start young. To our young sisters, to our children, it's good that we start talking to them now. They join STEM schools, so that when they grow up, they do not have that fear of not having background or not knowing what is going on in the mechanical sector. So that way, it's going to be easier for them in the future. We can as well, like in Rwanda, we have 80% of women are in the parliament, but it's also time that as the transportation policies are being taken, women can also participate, open up, and this is going to help us or speak up for women. So yeah, I mean, it's a whole new thing on the continent, but also it's full of opportunities. We just have to be willing. We just have to be open to help one another and uplift each other. Yeah, at our place, we are currently working um, on like we are giving women internships. Happy to put a woman along and teach them how this is done, and yeah, grow together. So I think that's my take on this.
Thank you so much. Women doing a lot of things. I can see people saying that they are in the board for e-mobility companies. Kudos to you all. So I'll move over to Luta. Luta, what are the opportunities you see for women, especially with regards to young women and youths?
I know.
Oh yeah, we can hear you, Luta. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. I think I'll just keep my video off for network bandwidth, yeah? It's been good listening to the other panelists, and I think I agree with most of what has already been said. Now, coming from a perspective of environment and climate change, I would just like to give a little bit a snippet to the background of why it's important that women take advantage and, step into the opportunities that are there in the e-mobility sector. So the energy sector is a major anchor to our development. We all know this. And it's also a contributor to greenhouse gas emissions causing climate change. Yeah. Um, why today we speak of e-mobility is part of the contribution that goes to a just transition to sustainable energy use. The transport sector in itself, um, speaking of vehicles, airplanes, trains, the whole lot, accounts for one-fifth of the global carbon dioxide emissions. So that means it's about 24% of the emissions that contribute to climate change. And then road travel. We've spoken of how women are um, also users in terms of traveling in public transport. And yeah, so the road travel accounts for three-quarters of these emissions that are attributed to transport. So we see how significant um, this topic is in terms of mitigating climate change. So it's very, very important that we start speaking of a transition to sustainable transport systems to reduce the emissions. That said, let's look at uh, how women are impacted by the climate change as we speak of it, because I think it's important to see the kind of dangers that lie therein, that should push us to really take advantage and engage in these spaces. So climate crisis is not gender neutral. Unfortunately to say is that women and girls, we are at the forefront of the impacts of this climate change. Um, it's disproportionate in terms of how it impacts. And studies have shown that women and children are 14 times more likely to die than men, mostly due to the limited access to information, limited mobility, not being able to take part in decision making, and also limited access to resources. So you see, we're really at a risk. And this should push us as leaders to really encourage um, girls and women to take part. The reason I'm highlighting this is to emphasize on the importance of women inclusion in sustainable development at all levels. Given their position on the front line of this climate crisis, women are uniquely situated to be agents of change, if we can call it that. So, women as agents of change, because we know that in communities, once women take up and lead in behavioral change, it's most likely to succeed. So, the behavioral change and consumer attitudes of women can drive change across all sectors. Um, in reference to a report that was done by the European Investment Fund, shows that women-led firms have higher environmental, social, and governance scores than other companies. So this means that with greater representation of women in leadership positions, we have better track records in adoption of environmentally friendly practices. So already we can see how uh, women positioning themselves in this e-mobility sector can be of great advantage to the development of the whole. It is also said that women leaders are more likely to invest in renewable energy and improve environmental outcomes. I've heard previous panelists speak and also mention the fact that women are increasingly contributing to renewable energy sector, which is true because statistics show that 40% of employees in solar energy are women, as opposed to only 22% thereabouts in the oil and gas sector. So this is something that we can delve into, of course, and see how is it that we can also increase. Why not go to 60% of women in renewable energy? So now that we have seen how it is, the importance of women in these spaces and what it means in terms of social and environmental aspects, what opportunities lie therein? Um, I will not repeat what other panelists have already spoken to, which I agree to, but I would say that empowering women includes including those in rural economies and integrating them into the electric vehicle revolution and across the whole value chain, as developers, as designers, as drivers, as producers, as consumers. Why not partner with them for the charging stations and the whole lot? It has a potential to drive significant progress in sustainable transportation. And this is with enough data, we can prove that. And I think um, Anika can support with the UN support and other partners. We can always um, look for more data to support this. So in order to accelerate this, we need capacity. So when we're asking for women to participate, we need to also bring them up to par and reinforce their capacity, tailored for the inclusion of women. So the training workshops that we're organizing, very important and very good, but we should start um, building these trainings tailored to women to build their understanding, to equip the women with skills necessary to challenge all pre-existing stereotypes.
Wait, I guess I need to
Um,
score now.
in development, of course, we need a meaningful contribution, and this, I think, this is the best way that we can have this. I'm reminded of a development project that was implemented sometime. in the sanitation sector. This is just an example that we've had. And the project was geared to putting an end to open defecation in rural community, which is a major problem there somewhere in Africa. And they succeeded in building over 100 toilets. Now, however, on their return, after a year, 90% of these toilets were found to be serving as storage spaces. So we ask ourselves why? Because they didn't put much consideration into studying social cultural aspects of the community, into understanding the gender interactions and the necessary feedback to inform the project. So this is why I agree with previous speakers when they say that women participation is very important. So it's quite unfortunate that we are still lacking in that representation in this space, but it's an opportunity for us to see how women can really impact and ensure that such experiences, like the unfortunate experience for the community, is not repeated. So I can safely say that women's active participation in design and implementation of e-mobility infrastructure contributes to the creation of transport systems that cater to diverse needs of communities. So it includes including those that have, traditionally been undeserved or marginalized. So I think I will stop it at that, and maybe we can discuss further in the questions. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I apologize. I had a bit of network issues with the ongoing protests in Nigeria. Our networks have been a bit unstable. Okay, so please, if you have any question, you could please put it down on in the comment section. We're gonna take that. So Faith, I don't know if you're around. Is your
Yes,
network
I
bad?
am. Yeah, my bandwidth is an issue, so I request not to do the video, but I can be
Okay,
able to take care of that.
no problem. Go ahead.
Okay. First, I would really like to delve into the challenges that this space is experiencing, and I hope with this conversation starting on a very high note, we will be able to address some of the challenges. We know that the EV industry is experiencing phenomenal growth and poised to revolution, uh, revolutionize the transportation globally, and many of the panelists have highlighted that. And this exciting and a crucial shift with the rise of women who are voicing the possibilities will continue to break down the barriers and the shape and shaping the future of e-mobility. But the challenges I continue to foresee is we still don't have very solid platforms that are willing to extend a hand for women to learn, to upskill, to instill, uh, 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 to do capacity building. And my prayer is that, and my hope is that this being the Women Month and this conversation being on the table, we will be able to have very many programs where we can launch, like one of the programs I have seen units having called She Drives Electric Initiative, where the UNEP and IEA ability globally. Such a platform helps the upcoming women who are joining the e-mobility space to have something they can identify with, so that as they grow in the space, they know that others have already set the pace. Continually having examples of trailblazers who are living in the EV infrastructure and charging solutions. When we have such women who are coming out in a certain platform like this one, we will be able to have the women who are willing to even be entrepreneurs in this space to come out, ask the right questions, reach out to the right platforms, check the networks that are there, and they will be able to be helped. But my hope and prayer is that the women in EV network will be able to create a haven for the women to know that if they want to upskill, if they want to reskill, they can reach out to a certain network and be able to enter into a certain program easily. Because the problem with facilitation, the problem with having a structure that supports learning, upskilling, capacity building is still a very huge problem. But my hope is that we will be able to have women entrepreneurs who are willing to put in this space and are willing to handhold others, because these women will be a very valuable networking and mentorship a stronghold where many girls, youth will be willing to come in and be able to interact with aspiring female EV entrepreneurs. Then sharing of success stories. If we can have a platform where we are sharing success stories about the inspiring women leaders in the EV space, we can be able to influence and impact quickly, because people identify with success stories. They are able to see the difference that has been made, where they started, and then they are able to come into the space without the gray areas in their mind, not really understanding what they are actually looking at. So as we continue with this conversation, I will continue to reiterate my my interest and my passion to be able to bring more women on board by even letting them know that they don't really have to have a very rich background on the auto space. So long as they develop interest, there is a whole huge network of women who will be willing to work with them to be able to assist them in building a skill set for the EV industry space. So I know this will be a very continuous conversation where we will have even the innovation and the problem solving structures, so that we can have collaborative networking leadership structures that help these women who are looking into understanding the space. Thank you. I beg to stop there for now.
Thank you so much, Faith. That was such an insightful comment. Thank you so much to our panelists so far. They have really given us some insight about their journey and their general overview. So I have some questions. There is one in the chat that says, why don't we have enough organizations sponsoring women for trainings, such as the one organized by African NEF? And how can organizations like UNEP, I think Smarter Mobility and others work with us to train more women on technical training? Uh, so who is going to give a shot on this? Anika, are you with us? If Anika is not here, Anazi can give a shot because I can see Smarter Mobility there.
Okay, I'm not sure if Annika's here, but I can sort of answer that one. So, this is what we are trying to do. So that's why we launched our Women in Mobility seminar and breakfast network. But these types of programs, right, they need a lot of policy, they need a lot of advocacy, sorry. And they need us to partner with each other. So it mustn't just be me trying to do it or just African F trying to do it. I think we can all use each other's platforms to try and elevate women and make sure that they are getting the right types of training tailored to them, as mentioned by the previous speaker. And it's also about the networking opportunities, because if if we having women in the same space, in the same platforms, we'll be able to connect and collaborate and also share knowledge just amongst each other, you know. So I think we are ready. We've started the movement, and I think, you know, instead of us working in silos, as I mentioned earlier, we should really look at how we can tap into each other. I mean, there's more than enough for all of us to go around and do this, but I would think, you know, the reasonable and logical thing to do is to tap into what each other is doing and make sure that we have strong advocacy for women throughout the year, not just in these months where it's August or it's a Women's Day, it's international. It's a 365-day project. And I also think we need to make sure that the training is very targeted. You know, it's specialized training programs. It's addressing unique needs for women in mobility. It's covering the technical and the soft skill, the leadership, as well as the entrepreneurship. So it needs to be really targeted as well. So I think, yeah, holistically, let's work together, let's collaborate. We are doing quite a lot of women in initiatives in Advoca Group and at Smarter Mobility Africa, but we need collaboration from the rest of the continent so that we're able to echo what the colleagues and delegates are worried about. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Anazi. That's well answered. I hope that answers your question. We also have a question here.
Sorry, Duncan. Sorry, Biensit. Um, can I add on?
Yeah, sure, go on.
As he said, yeah. Um, I think that we don't have enough women. I would say dedicated trainings for women. We don't have them enough because women are still, um, and it's an understatement. It's they are still invisible in a sense that the the examples I've mentioned earlier are quite diverse, but they're not they're just a few. It's not something that you find or that it's mainstreamed all around the continent. If we had more platforms to actually visualize that, make people see that women exist in the sector, because Annika mentioned it and as you mentioned it, there were the only women in their organization or in their committee or etc. And I it's the same for me in my organization. Moving on, we don't have a lot of women, but we're working on that to make, I would say, um, this sector better. We need more balance, and the balance comes also with the gender. And some private organizations and consortiums are also here to actually build up this, I would say, this ecosystem towards a inclusive, gender inclusivity, but they're all working in silos. We need more push, uh, not only from the private sector, because they are doing most of the work today in gender inclusivity, but we need to bring along and bring this awareness to the decision makers. These are the ones, and especially in Africa, when we see that people are really relying on what the government is saying. Today, if the government says we have quotas, for example, for women in this and that, we need more women in the academic sector because it also comes from there. Most of the professional in the transport sector are engineers, for example. If we actually make sure that engineers, engineering programs are including more women, or urban planning program are actually including more women, we will see change in the sector. So first, we need more representation in all the spheres, and we need also more consortiums like like the UNEP is doing, like other organizations are doing, and we need ecosystemic. It's I won't stop to say it. If we don't work in ecosystem, we won't achieve the goals that that we have fixed for ourselves. I'm done. Sorry.
I think there's an issue on Beyonce's side, so maybe I'll just take advantage and continue on with the discussion. I think I agree with what you have mentioned, Anika, in terms of having.
It's
Uh,
Charlene. Sorry,
oh,
I need.
Charlene.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I agree with what you have mentioned, and I think it's quite important that we also recognize that education levels in our communities are different. So, um, without leaving the women that are in areas, rural areas, and areas where we're not very sure of their education level, organizations can also look into the wider spectrum of inclusion of these women that may not necessarily have the basic skills of uh, basic who have not been able to go to school basically. Yeah. So my idea is that organizations that take into account the gender issues are not many, and this is why we have trainings on gender equity and gender inclusion and gender mainstreaming for organizations to always remind them that there are these aspects that limits the participation of women on these platforms. So, in as much as we want organizations to take into account and work towards increasing women, we also need to look on the other side of how to ensure that women actually want to be part of these sectors. Are we creating systems in place? And we've already spoken of systems, creating systems that actually are inviting enough and interesting enough for women to actually want to be in these sectors. And I think it's one of the pitfalls of the work that we do, because we know women, once they see that something is a bit difficult, quote unquote, it may be difficult for them, even if the opportunities are handed to them, for them to actually latch onto that and take the opportunity. So we have to ensure that adaptation and mainstreaming goes very deep and systemic, so that there's a conscious recognition of the barriers and intentional efforts towards an inclusive sector. So another point is when we speak of networks for women and representation, and I think one of the panelists also spoke about this. When the younger ones see there's representation, even in these trainings, are we organizing trainings and the trainers are male or are they female, you know? So having mentorships and these trainings and people, our girls seeing that there's very capable women taking the lead, and there's opportunities for mentorships within these networks. And I think many organizations that are working in development would want to gravitate towards um, these such kind of networks that are uplifting women and girls in towards infiltrating these EV spaces. So I think I'll leave it at that. Hopefully, Bansit is back online. Thanks.
So we'll just go ahead. Thank you, Luta. So I still have more questions. We also have a question here which says, uh, are there sponsorship opportunities offering free or subsidized tertiary education or renewable energy courses? Because you might have many women interested in such but unable to cater for their education, which is limiting their involvement in such fields. This is coming from Elizabeth. Any of our panelists that can answer that?
I would wish to take that. I would say yes and no, that the opportunities are there, but unfortunately, most of the companies that are willing to take up internship, graduates, other graduates or students, um, they are checking a lot of qualifications. And some of the roundtable discussions we started to initiate, especially in Kenya with some of the universities like Nairobi University, North Kenya University, Kenyatta University, JKUAT, and all those universities. It is very clear that we need to re-evaluate some of the checks and balances that were there previously when we are looking at the e-mobility space. But I would want to say yes, those opportunities are there and they will be coming up. The only thing that we will need to look at, especially the stakeholders and the people who are sitting on these tables, is to be able to create structure that really look at the space as a new space, but a growing space, so that even when we are looking at getting qualification from these graduates or these students who are in STEM, we will be able to look at what are the basic qualifications. Because when we are looking at 2 or 3 years or 4 years experience in the e-mobility space, we need to be able to check what category are we endeavoring into hiring for that particular company. What category are they looking into hiring? What is the basic skill set are they looking at? Because by doing that, we will not have a lot of STEM students or graduates not having an opportunity to be able also to learn. And the other thing that we are really pushing in some of these discussions is to have the new entrants that are coming in, the companies that are coming in and launching in the EV space, to endeavor to create opportunities for internship as many as they can.
All right, thank you so much, Faith, for answering that. Also, it would like you to know that we are also trying to change this notion through the African NEF by the all-female training, which I'm going to actually discuss later about. But we need more sponsorship to make more impact and more sponsorship to cover more people. So we are also working on that in case you have anybody here has access to sponsor institutions that are willing to sponsor such programs for female activities. So thank you so much. It has been an insightful journey. So I'm just going to take a last round to our panelists to give us their final insight. I will start with Luta, and give us your final comments.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity and for organizing this session. I think generally it's been very insightful and a beginning of many others that will bring light to the participation of women in these spaces. And I think it's as soon as we make this a norm, uh, a normal occurrence, like make it regular, would have more women actually interested. Having women leaders in the sector succeeding in what they do and being role models is very important, and mentors as such. So I think as a takeaway for here is let's create a solid network. Let us join the platforms that have already been established. Let's make them strong and let's support each other in these EV spaces. I think there's a lot of opportunities that we have, some of which we have not even um, discovered. Yeah. So there's a lot that needs to be covered. Thank you so much. Thank you to the panelists as well for the insightful discussion and points made. I think I've learned um, something new, a thing or two. And let's all become change makers in our own small communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Luta. So Elnor hand has been up for a while. So Elnor, you can speak now.
Hello. I've been just listening and being inspired as well. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Elna. I'm a lady aged 27 years old now. So I'm from Zimbabwe. I am an auto mechanic. Right now, I've been transferred with my company. I'm now working in Zambia. So I'm really inspired listening to other ladies talking about being in the automotive industry. Yeah, we do have some challenges being under this industry. Most men look down upon ladies. So I've been listening, just keeping quiet. Thank you very much for such kind of program.
All right, thank you, Elnor. Mary, you can give us your final comments.
Thank you, Basinter. Thank you for organizing this and your team. This has been an engaging discussion, and we look forward to having more of these. So I can conclude saying that Immobit sector is new and it has more opportunities. So we can just uplift each other and um, uplift women who are not yet in the industry but who are willing to tap in. Yeah, and then to us who are there in, let us have a continuous growing journey. Yeah, learning from each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Anazi.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for inviting me to this discussion. I look forward to having more fruitful discussions like this. We'll definitely continue the baton. Thank you for starting the conversation, African Nev, but we'll continue the conversation throughout and into October. And yeah, I'm just hoping that we see more women at the wheel of change and the wheels of the EV revolution. So thank you so much, and yeah, I hope to connect with you guys outside of this platform.
Thank you so much, Anazi. Charlene.
Yes, I think a round of things is needed here. Thank you very much for the invitation. I would just say that let's continue the good work. I think we're on a right and a good path. And if we continue to expose and make women more visible, everyone will actually agree and make the right choices and carry out the right actions towards more inclusivity. And let's not forget men, because the subject is not all about women, uh, but it's also about men. We need women trained, but we also need men, men that are trained to actually be the voices as well to this cause. Because if we only making the noise as women, it won't have the same impact as if men also do. So we need more men also in this kind of conversation. So I hope that next time we won't have only a 100 women panel, but that we'll have as at least, sorry, one man, or two to actually advocate with us.
Thank you so much, Charlene. That's noted. And finally, we have Faith.
Allowed overthought to all the ladies in the families, and I really echo what Anazi has said about having men also on board. When we have men seeing what we are also seeing, they will be able to advocate and champion the same and accelerate this if we have what it takes to be able to create solid structures and a good ground for accelerating women in the e-mobility space. And I have no doubt that as we continue having this conversation, even outside this seat webinar, we will be able to check the starting point, the goals, the action point, and be able to have this will continuing to roll because we have very many more women behind us who are looking at us and also checking whether we have set the pace as the trailblazer. So I believe that we have the capacity. I am grateful to AfricaNet for having given us this opportunity and look forward to having many more interactive and impactful conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Faith, and thank you to all our panelists. Thank you for everyone that joined. I think we're right on time. But just before we go, I just want to share with us about the. I know you've been hearing the about the all-female training. So I just want to give you an overview of the capacity building for the all-women training we are having. The major aim is to provide after-sales support, but it's majorly directed to women. Uh, yeah, it's majorly directed to women within the e-mobility space. We did a recent study and we found out about 300 women indicated interest in this program for various countries across Africa. But the reason why the program has not yet gone live is that we have quite a number of issues, more like requests. We are looking for sponsorship to do this program on site, but in the meantime, communications will go out for the one we'll be doing online so that we could have a theoretical base and then we could have a physical one on site. So keep your face glued to your emails for communication about this all-female training program that is going to be happening. And also, if you have any connections to either any company or institution that is willing to sponsor such a program for women, do not hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you to African Net for organizing this program. Uh, Thank you everyone for joining and staying with us till the end of the day. Do have a nice day. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
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 Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.